Brilliant. Okay, we are live. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for people to kind of filter in. Appreciate there's people joining in from different parts of the States, maybe even different parts of the world. So bear with us a few minutes. We'll give people some time. To everyone who is joining, as you come in, you're going to see a poll just pop up in front of you. That poll is what areas have hindered growth within a quality organization. Please do cast your opinion there. We're going to use this poll to gather data, put it into our white paper, which will be available to all of you once that is published. So whether that be remuneration, title inflation, retention, diversity issues, cultural differences, transferable skills, or talent competition, make sure you vote on that poll. Try and make this a bit more interactive. We're up to 24 participants at the moment. Just going to give it a bit more time so people can keep on filtering in. I'm going to throw it out to the panel actually. While we're waiting for people to join, what areas do you think have hindered growth in a quality organization? Let's get some opinions going. Katie, I'm going to pick on you just because I see you there. what areas do you think have hindered growth in the quality organization?
Well, I closed the question, so I was trying to figure out, am I supposed to pick from the question?
No, you can pick from the question. You can use your imagination. In your opinion, what do you think is a factor that's hindering growth?
I think I did see talent competition listed. I do think it's such a hot market right now, and there's so many opportunities for quality professionals to join new organizations, maybe serve 2 to 3 years, get what they need out of that experience, opposed to really staying with a firm and growing through the career ladder in that fashion.
I agree. I also closed the box and was trying to see if I could find it again. I agree. I think it's that the competition for talent and just the ability to move, to navigate a career and try different things.
Interesting, because I'm reading the question, obviously it says growth within a quality organization. You know, one of the things that I think is interesting from my perspective as an educator is the beginning of the funnel doesn't come generally from a university with a trained workforce, right? You all in industry have to do that yourself. So for example, you know, I would say 50% of my friends after we graduated from college landed in quality, but they just came to that by chance. So you're even at a disadvantage with the beginning of the funnel to some extent.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the way I was, I guess there's a couple ways to look at the question that you pulled. I'm thinking of it hindering my ability to grow a quality unit. And you may have been asking it in terms of what hinders a person's growth within quality. Two sides of the coin.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, look, I think it's 5 past now. We will get started. So I know people are going to keep on kind of trickling in as we go through this, but welcome everyone who has just joined. Good afternoon, good evening, maybe good morning, depending on where you are tuning in from the world. I'd imagine the majority of people here are in the US. If you are, drop it into the chat. Let us know what state you're tuning in from. If you're not, let us know what country you're listening from. It's always interesting to hear what the international reach is on these webinars. But yeah, welcome to our BioTalent Social live event. Today, we're going to be talking about developing a career within quality in life sciences. The structure, it's going to be an hour of a panel discussion with a live Q&A throughout. So if at any point you have a question, drop it into the chat, drop it into the Q&A box, and we'll try to get through as many of them as possible at the end. After this, you will see a link in the chat box to join our networking session. This will be after the event. We'll all come together in essentially one big Zoom room, massive networking session, get to meet the panelists, get to meet all the other attendees, and should make for a great session. But yeah, my name is Darren. I'm the host and chair for this event. If you've not heard of us before, BioTalent Social, we're an offline community. We aim to connect the life sciences industry through a series of webinars, podcasts, and meetups. Our first webinar, fun fact, actually was a year ago tomorrow, on St. Patrick's Day 2021. Rather than being out in the pub drinking Guinness, I was sitting inside doing our first webinar, which is always very fun. But our aim today is to discuss and identify how to build and grow your career within quality, right? Uncovering the tips, the tools that are required to succeed. We do want to make it as engaging as possible. So like I say, any questions for the panel, drop it into the Q&A, drop it into the chat box. Lastly, before we kick things off, just note that this is being recorded. It will be uploaded to our BioTalent Social YouTube channel. It'll also be available as a podcast. And in a few weeks, the white paper will be available to all the attendees also. So I'd like to pass the baton over to our amazing panel. If you could all introduce yourself, introduce your role, a bit about your background, what brought you into quality, and we all want to hear a fun fact from you as well. So passing it over to you. Let's start with you, Greg.
All right, I'm Greg Whitehead. I'm the Chief Quality Officer for Rubius Therapeutics. Tomorrow will actually be my 3rd anniversary at Rubius. Prior to Rubius, I was the Vice President of Quality at Bluebird Bio, and prior to that, I spent 10 years in various roles at a company called Dendreon on the West Coast in Seattle. I've been in pharma/biotech for about 25 years, and before that entered into pharma from as a med tech, working in a toxicology testing lab. So worked in regulated space, whether it be CLIA certified laboratory or FDA regulated, for my entire career. The fun fact, it's not very fun, but people wonder how I started my career and how I got to where I am. I started my very first job out of college was as a chemist in a wastewater treatment plant. So I think it gave me a very unique skill to know bullshit when it's thrown my way. So
good stuff. Love that. Jared, let's hear a bit about you.
Excellent. Thanks, Darren. Hi to all of you. I'm Jared O'Clair. I'm the Associate Dean of Professional Programs and Graduate Affairs in the College of Science at Northeastern. I also run our CLIA CAP certified high complexity molecular diagnostic testing lab, aka COVID lab, and run the biopharmaceutical analysis and training lab, which is a research and training lab that mainly focuses on training and research in the quality space. So we support quality trainings for the International Council for Harmonization, the Asia Pacific Economic Corporation. We work with the WHO and others, and also think about quality research and how we can ensure quality products get to patients. Because really, at the end of the day, my mom goes to the pharmacy and just assumes everything's good quality. So somebody better make sure that it is. And I think that's part of what I try to do. I really don't have any fun facts. I mean, I can give you a boring fun fact. I've trained and taught quality on every continent except for Antarctica, last place being in Armenia before the pandemic.
Wow, we need to get you to Antarctica ASAP.
I know, put me on that boat, I'll do it.
Brilliant, cheers, Jared. Katie, last but not least, over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Katie Terry. I'm the Vice President of Quality at Acceleron Pharma. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Merck. Merck acquired us back in November. In my role at Acceleron, I'm responsible for GxP quality. We were really in building our commercial platform. So we were going from R&D to commercialization. So it was an exciting time for us. I've been in the industry for about 20 years. I like to say I grew up in the lab. Very humbly, one of my first jobs was cleaning the walls and spraying down the floors and trying to really keep that manufacturing facility clean for everyone. From there, I moved into validation. I oversaw some contract manufacturing sites at Biogen IDEC, moved my way into Synovian. My last role was at Alnylam, which was really an amazing opportunity for me. I had the opportunity to be a GxP quality systems director and was really part of the end-to-end drug development. So fun fact. So I have one, but it's not work related. So what I was going to tell the group is one of my favorite foods is raclette. And one of my first trips that found this favorite food was with my husband, my now husband at the time we were dating. And we skied Courchevel in Switzerland. So that's a little bit about me.
Brilliant. Well, Jared, I just saw in the chat, Judy thinks your fun fact is really cool. So we definitely need to get you to Antarctica. Oh, good stuff. My fun fact is that myself and Greg showed up tonight wearing the exact same shirt. So we're representing the blue shirts tonight. Unfortunately, Jared and Katie didn't get that memo. But no, thanks for that panel. Some really, really amazing backgrounds, really amazing stories there, and quite interested to dive into it. So to kick things off, this webinar is all about how to develop your career in quality, right? But I want to strip it right back and discuss what is quality, okay? What does it mean? I don't mean the actual job itself. You know, we're not here to talk about conducting audits or reviewing batch records. I want to discuss what's the mindset behind quality, right? We mentioned in our roundtable event how many people fall into the field of QA. The argument can be made that you need to have the right mindset to do it, right? So feel free to agree or disagree with me, but I want to open this up to all of you and the listeners. If anyone listening has an opinion, do throw it in. But look, Katie, if we start with you, let's talk about the quality mindset. Okay, what does a quality mindset mean to you?
Yeah, in the simplest form, it's across the entire company. For me, it's really about every person doing the right thing at the right time. Really having a company that's anchored in the core value around quality, because we see it in all parts of the business, whether it's in someone that works in commercial or is trying to sell the product, or someone that works in legal that is pushing out the compliance policies. I think there's something to really be said around ethical work behaviors and really being rooted in your personal and professional integrity.
Interesting, good stuff. Greg, Jared, what about you two? I mean, what's your opinion on this? What is a quality mindset? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think Katie, nailed it. I think it's a commitment, and it's a commitment to the patients we serve. And I love the word ethics. I think that is the foundation of what we are here to do. And the one thing I like to say is quality is everybody's. We say it all the time. Quality is everybody's responsibility, but it's not just those with quality in their title that have to take it seriously. The entire company. It's about weaving it into the culture. And making it an everyday activity that people don't even think about. It is just something they show up and do.
I mean, I think that's right. I think at the end of the day, when I think about quality, that, like Greg said, the thing that I always keep in my mind is the patient, right? That's really what I think about, and also thinking about quality mindset across all departments is crucial, right? It's really a team effort, which is why I like sort of the newer approaches to quality that are quality by design, which in the academic arena is not something that most of my colleagues think about, or those of them that do drug development, lightly speaking. Obviously, it's really early phase research, but my argument to them is they should be thinking about quality now, and they think I'm crazy. So it's really a mindset that needs to be baked in, I think, and I also think that it's one in which you have to be a truly collaborative person. I mean, I think that you collaborate across the entire organization, and if you're not collaborative, it's hard to do anything.
Yeah, I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they think quality is GMP, or if you're in the GCP side of the organization, it's GCP. Those are just regulations. They just are guidances that help us figure out, the right and wrong. Some are absolutes. The FDA says you will do, but there's a lot of guidance out there as well. It comes down to a core philosophy, and your company either buys into it and the benefit of integrating quality throughout the entire organization, or they don't. It's very old school to think of quality as checking numbers, reading sentences and making sure that it's written correctly. A zero is a zero. Yes, that is an intimate part of what we do, but there's so much more to it than that these days.
It's interesting. So there was a lot of a lot of things there, obviously it is a mindset. It's something that you inhabit. It's something that you learn. It's ethical, right? I mean, do we think that this mindset, is it something that just comes with time as you progress your career, or is this something that can be taught from an early stage in their career or even in their academic education? Is this mindset something that can be taught to a person?
Yeah, I think I actually do. I mean, I think that it can be taught to a person, right? I mean, and I think other countries that aren't the US do maybe a better job of doing that than we might do in our higher education system when we're training in this space. But I think it can be taught, right? And the interesting thing from my perspective too is I think that there's a lot of interest in quality that people just don't even know that it's there, right? Until you actually get your first job and you're like, oh, this is cool. So I think it can be taught. And as a matter of fact, right, I've tried to model some of our teaching efforts on the qualified person, right, in Europe. So I do think it can be taught. I don't think that many of us teach it. Now, we leave the teaching of quality to people like Greg and Katie who are working, which is a mistake, but in my opinion, but it can be taught.
Yeah, I think it can be taught, but I also think there's an element of kind of understanding what your personal passion is or your values, because a lot of what quality is about is really trying to seek to understand, trying to be a problem solver, really trying to understand the regulations. So it's really trying to understand what are you also really good at? How do those values align with sort of a quality role? And then being able to kind of teach the principle on top of all of it, to your point, Jared, around training qualified professionals or qualified persons, and then training some junior level staff as they grow. But it also really comes down to some of those other analytical skills. And again, for me, what drives me every day is kind of that, like, oh, I love doing things the right way, or thinking about how to do things a little bit differently, but staying in the confines of quality. So it's trying to kind of have that curiosity almost.
Yeah, you can teach anything. I firmly believe you can go out and teach it. And I think value is the right word. It has to be valued. You can teach somebody to be a police officer. It doesn't mean that they're going to go out and do the right thing every day. There's bad in there as well. But I do think that it has to be valued not only by the person in the quality organization, but by the organization itself and, and our industry. And there is value, but unfortunately, it is traditionally when things have gone awry. It has been, quality is valued much more highly when a company has done something wrong and the FDA has stepped in, instead of from those early days before anything goes wrong.
Good stuff. Now, actually, just an interesting point, Jared, that you made, and I want to kind of loop this back around to you, was around, most people don't know about a career in quality until they actually get into industry, right? I guess if you look at it and strip it right back to the start of anyone's career, being in college, university, everyone starts at the same gate. They all pass different finish lines, right? They'll all have studied biology, chemistry, pharma, biotech, other relevant fields, etc. Oftentimes they'll go down different paths, whether that be the clinical side, manufacturing, lab, etc. And I agree with you. I don't think there is much guidance into QA from an academic perspective. And I feel like if we can fix this, if we can tackle this, it could greatly increase the amount of people going into QA, right? So Jared, while we're with you on that one, I guess in your opinion, right, what can academic institutions do, or what can they be doing better to help quality professionals thrive and really lay the groundwork for people to go into this field?
Yeah, good question. So not to get onto my academic soapbox, but oftentimes you all might, or we all might think that higher education is meant for us to teach students to go get jobs. Some of my colleagues have often told me that that's not what their job is. Their job is to research, right? So there's a disconnect there. Why I say that, right, is like just the other day, I was visiting a manufacturing plant for something I was doing and walking around and seeing everything that happens and the whole process, quality and otherwise, right? And just thinking to myself, like, we do a really crummy job of training people across the spectrum so they can go and get a job and be productive in this space. biotech or pharma in general. So when I think about developing curricula and programming, I try to think about it in the context of the end-to-end processes that are used and what industry needs, right? And I actually try to talk to people like Greg and Katie and others who are working in like, who am I to say what skills a student needs to be successful in their organization? That would be crazy for me to not talk to them, right? So thinking about that and developing programs. So we've actually, I've tried to, the problem too with higher education, right, is that we're often bound to a couple of things, accreditation, fine. But also, like, if you're going to get a degree, you get so many credits, right? Students aren't going to pay more than those so many credits. So you got to sort of prioritize what you're going to teach, because, you can't teach everything, especially as the field evolves. So, we've started to build, like, we have an intro to quality course to try to get students sort of into the quality mindset and get them to understand it. And then we have advanced courses in QMS and other things to really, quality management systems and other things, to try to build that interest and give them exposure. And it's interesting because, excuse me, it's interesting because students, initially when we started, there was like, what is this? What are you talking about? And now we're starting to see quite a few students. There seems to be a typical student persona that's driven towards the quality space, which is, seems to be, generally speaking, more type A, highly organized, pay attention to detail type people, which probably isn't surprising to any of us, but it's just interesting to see that sort of pan out. But so that's why we're trying to promote actually programs that are more, and I try to promote, forget Northeastern, but in general, I try to promote programs that are aligned with industry so that you can start touching on these things. And then, bringing people in and talking about it, right? Like, I'm an academic. I send a lot of emails every day, right? But I'm not working in the industry. So we try to bring people in and have them talk about it and really try to make an engaging environment for the students to explore, especially in the quality space. And it's just really cool to see students' faces sort of light up, like, oh, I didn't know this exists, but this sort of fits my passion of what I want to do, right? And trying to drive them in that direction. The other end is, of course, making sure that, when industry realizes that some of our students, and we're not the only university that does it, but has some quality type of things that we provide for the students, training, and to leverage that to their advantage.
Good stuff. No, I completely agree with that. Katie, Greg, do you have any opinions on, I guess, what can academic institutions do to help quality professionals thrive?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the certificate programs that are offered out there. I think there's a lot of value in even professionals that are in other domains in the pharmaceutical industry, or maybe a little bit removed, taking some of those certificate programs, because it gives them an opportunity to learn the vocabulary, learn the preliminary concepts, like kind of the foundational concepts. And as a leader, that's something that I can work with. I can really take someone in, I can groom them, we can show them the how, if you will, if you know the concepts. I mean, quality can be challenging. I like to refer to it as sometimes you show up and you don't know the language, you don't have a map, and you have no idea where you're going, but everybody ends up there. So I think with that foundation, again, whether it's through these programs at Northeastern, the certifications, these opportunities to really interact with these academic institutions, is only going to make the industry stronger, and it's going to make the QC, QA organizations grow in the way that we need them to.
Yeah, I think I agree with both. It's, I don't know that a degree in quality in and of itself, would be necessarily a value outside of, the grander scientific discipline. But I do think, the more we can embed the understanding in those scientific tracks, or through certifications, I think just giving people that insight into what it means and what it is. I think a lot of what we've learned is trial by fire on the job. And I do think we are a stronger part of the industry because we are so diverse in our backgrounds. So I don't necessarily want like a bunch of schools to start kicking out QA I was gonna say bachelorettes, but that's the wrong word. maybe it's the right word, bachelor degree QA professionals, because I really think that education on the job is so critical to what we do. But a better understanding of people coming out of scientific disciplines would be amazing.
So let's just sort of quickly dive into that a bit more, right? So we can do things such as giving people more information. Brooks put it into the chat there, joining of biotech and pharma companies and school programs to better highlight QA and QC. I guess, what else can we do? What can we do to inspire the next generation of quality talent?
One thing you see out there to inspire scientists, young scientists, is co-ops and internships. We don't do much of that in the quality realm. When we do end up in that space, it's usually, I hate to say it, but we shove them into document control and have them file some things. And that usually will turn somebody off on a quality career in a heartbeat. I think we can do a better job of systematically really thinking about how to bring somebody again along on this journey, regardless of the degree they're working on, give them exposure to it in a real life setting.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's right. The best way to recruit people, the best way to teach and the best way to recruit, I think, is learn by doing, or exposed by doing.
Yeah, I know one of the things we had talked about leading up to this was, we've kind of landed in a spot here of talking about people and their degrees and how to move them into this, but we've also, had an open conversation about, do we need, 4-year degree to people in these roles? Are there opportunities for people with, that just have an aptitude for it? And maybe it is through certification, maybe it is through a trade school. I don't know if that's quite the right term, but a vocational school rather than a 4-year degree coming out of a university.
Yeah, that's my passion, is thinking about how, generally speaking, not even just quality, how we get more people, especially in the space of Massachusetts and New England, how we get more people engaged in the industry who don't otherwise have access. One of the things that that I think about is, are there ways to leverage apprenticeship programs where you can do training for, it's like usually the registered life science apprenticeship programs in the state of Massachusetts right now are biomanufacturing and clinical technician, and a couple of others that are being worked on, but they're like 4 months of book learning, 4 months of in the lab training, academic lab training, and then a year apprenticeship at a company, right? I think that does two things, right? It's a really nice way to get people into quality, but it's also a really nice way to find people who haven't had access to the industry that I might have had, and really sort of diversify the workforce and bring new ideas in, and really think about how we can build that infrastructure. I work at an institution of higher education, but they're expensive, and I don't know that if we don't change our model that we will be necessary, because a company can give a credential, and if everybody else in the industry recognizes that credential, then you don't need higher education, because it really needs to be driven by experience-based learning, which is why I like the apprenticeship programs.
I think, to me, it's almost as though there's two issues. So the first issue is pulling the talent in, so that way we can have sort of the entry level and then groom those entry level into the associate directors and directors. And so what does that ladder look like, and what does that progression look like? But I think the second challenge, at least what I hear from professionals in quality, is then how do you go from a director up? Because once you hit that director level, the expectations of you change. You're now not only doing, but you're a steward, and you're a leader, and you're a people manager. And so you have to be equipped with all of these other skills in addition to understanding the content. So I think, once you can finally find a way to bring people in, the kind of leadership dilemma will be, how do you grow and how do we continue to promote? Because we were just talking about how do we avoid sort of the mass exodus, because the talent war is feverishly happening all around us. So I think those are kind of the two things that I think about a lot.
So that sort of leads us nicely into the the topic that I wanted to speak about after academia was actually about the progression side of things, right? Because appreciate there were a few questions that came in on that topic as well. I promise you will loop around to them into Q&A at the end and try to get back to them. But Katie, you just looped very nicely there into the leadership side of things, right? I know there's probably a few associate directors, senior directors on this call who may feel the same way. When you get to that level, it can be a bit more difficult to progress, especially if you're in a small company, there's only one VP. You have to wait for that person to retire, or you have to wait for them to leave before you get the VP, right? Let's dive into it. I mean, compared to entry level, how do directors progress? What are the challenges that directors will face when progressing compared to somebody who's just getting started in the industry?
Are you throwing it at any one of us?
Yeah, I was waiting.
I don't want to speak over the top of somebody.
You go ahead, Greg. You go first.
I have people on this call who are probably like, yeah, keep him shut up. I will talk over the top of anybody. So mute me as needed. No, I think it is exactly what Katie said. There's a transition in everybody's career where it's less about being an expert in the details of what your department is doing. You have to make that transition into leadership and leading groups of experts. And it's hard, and it's not for everybody. I think the misnomer is that everybody's career progresses to that same spot. I mean, there are people who have perfectly wonderful careers being bench analysts their entire career. There's nothing wrong with it. I think there's a lot of pressure. We put a lot of pressure on people to just keep advancing and keep trying to get to that next step. It doesn't have to be that way. I spend a lot of time talking to people about their career development, where we talk about what retirement looks like and what our next step is, because it just doesn't have to always be that VP sitting in an office. But I do think it's that leadership aspect, and we turn a bunch of scientists into leaders. We don't give them those skills either any more than we give them quality skills. They did great in the lab, they were a great analyst. Here now there's some people, oh, they accomplished something, here's even more people, and suddenly they're a vice president. It's tricky if we don't again focus on giving them the skills to be successful in that it could be a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I think the other thing that really, and this I'm drawing from my own personal experience, but really transformed my own quality career or progression, was that I found that I became a director because I was good at one thing. So for example, you're good at GMP, or you're good at maybe CMC or GCP, like you're good at that one thing. And what I found that really made a difference in my own career was getting comfortable with moving laterally and being okay with those lateral experiences, because that's where you really transition from kind of what I would call a tactical leader, someone that knows the ins and outs of the job, to really being a steward, a facilitator, and someone that knows how to start to build teams, and you insulate yourself with those that know more than you. And that's how you really refine some of those leadership skills. So I always encourage people when they ask me, I said, don't be afraid. It's easy for me to sit here and say that, but don't be afraid of those lateral moves, because that's what's going to get you kind of in that upward mobility, especially in this Cambridge market where there are so many small companies. Everybody wants GxP. Everybody kind of loves this idea of the GxP quality professional, and those are hard to come by. So I guess those are the other things that I kind of think about when I think about career progression and when I'm developing those around me.
Yeah, you see it often where people think to get, to be at that level, you need more people, you need a larger group under you. I do encourage as well that, step out of your comfort zone and learn something new. And I love the phrase, insulate yourself with those that know more. I mean, it is, if anybody wants the trick, that's the trick. I know what I know, and I think I'm very aware of what I don't know. And I surround myself with people much smarter than me and much more capable than I am.
Yeah.
You made a point there, Katie, about making that lateral move. Okay, if you've become like an expert in GMP, make a move, do something else, do GxP, GCP, GLP, etc. Right? And I guess maybe I'm speaking wrong here, but sometimes people who have built their career in GCP, they don't want to go into GMP because it's like, oh, it's completely different, which to be fair, it is, but we can agree there are transferable skills you can kind of carry over to them, right? And we spoke about this in our the sort of lead up to this event, was the virtual startups popping up all around Boston, all around Cambridge, all relying on CDMOs, CMOs. And we had that topic about transferable skills being beneficial to these companies. I'm going to start with you, Katie, so we don't have that awkward silence of who's answering this one. But Katie, what are these transferable skills that you believe would be beneficial to these companies?
Yeah, so when I think about these smaller startup companies hiring their first quality professional, what I really think about is someone that has some business savvy. So someone that can come in and really understand the portfolio and understand the portfolio needs. And from there, you can then draw what is your quality strategy. So really business savviness, you're going to want to be able to draw some kind of like 90-day strategic plan or 180 strategic plan just to get the lay of the land and show the organization generally this is where you want to go. But I also think another really important skill, and again, this is my 2 cents, I've learned it over the years, I just really take a seek to understand approach. Tell me what you're doing, tell me why you're doing it, why do you think this is good? Because the more information I get from my stakeholders and through the stakeholder management, I can build a stronger quality culture, or the quality leader can build a stronger quality culture. And then you find those interdependencies and they come so much more naturally as you're building that organization and you're transitioning from R&D to commercial. Those are a couple that came to mind.
Good stuff. Brilliant. Any other opinions on that when it comes to transferable skills?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I've heard throughout my entire career, GCP is very different than GMP, which is very different than GTP. They are just regulations. Anybody can read them, and yes, how you approach them, you need a different skill set, but it's all very learnable, and I really do I really do recommend that everybody step outside of that paradigm that if you didn't come up through GCP, you couldn't possibly do it. If you're the rigid GMP, you couldn't possibly get GCP. You can do it. I really think the most important thing a quality professional can do entering a small company is really expand your network. It is there's no company out there that day one can afford to bring all the skill sets in. And in fact, they're not full-time jobs. You need a GCP expert. You need somebody that understands GLP. If you're going to Europe, you need somebody that understands distribution. To be honest, even outside of quality, you need to understand how to budget. There's a lot of skills that you need to bring that you probably didn't get an education in. Doesn't matter if it's a 5-person company or an established company. If you're coming in new, I think surround yourself with your network of people that can support you. And it could be a lot of times in those small companies, it's a network of consultants or your friends that you've worked with through the years. You pick up the phone and you figure out how to do it.
I mean, I think people think about transferable skills too specifically, right? Like, oh, if I can do X, then does that transfer over to location B, right? For me, I think of it more globally. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the most important skills to have are critical thinking, problem solving, and being willing and able to learn new things, and to pay attention to that. And I think those are probably universal skills that can be transferable across any job function, not only quality, right? I think, and that's something that I try to tell people all the time, right? Like, if you come with a foundation of those things and know how to interact with people, then you can do just about anything. Trust me, being able to interact with people is not that simple either. Don't get me wrong, but
it's the skill I've stumbled over my entire career.
Having people skills, number one most important transferable skill, being able to talk to people. Brilliant. I want to touch on a topic, right? And it was actually raised by a gentleman called Miles at the very start of the event. He raised a point about, do we think people are being promoted too quickly in the industry? I think yes. And this brings us on to that topic that we spoke about regarding title inflation, right? Title inflation it's an industry-wide topic. It's something that can both promote, it can also hinder progression. We're seeing people with, I mean, I've seen it, people with, 6-7 years experience being senior directors, okay, when in reality, they should realistically be a manager, senior manager. Now, before we start kicking off, I fully believe that you cannot measure success based on tenure. It's based on skill, it's based on work ethic, and some people can progress faster than others, 100%. However, I do think title inflation is still a real issue in the industry. I do agree with what Miles said. People are being promoted too quickly, and if they're not being promoted, they're just leaving. They're getting a higher title where they're not quite at that level. So let's discuss that. I'm gonna throw it out to the whole panel, so whoever catches it first can go first. Title inflation. What are your thoughts on it, and what can organizations do to address this?
Since I'm off mute, I'll go. It is challenging. I don't want to limit anybody's career either financially or title. It's never my goal, but I also take it very seriously that I don't want somebody who has worked under me out on the street looking for a job, trying to support a title that others are looking at that they just can't support. With that said, it is pervasive. It is happening every day. We are seeing it's more and more rapid advancement with very limited experience, and I think it's dangerous. I don't know. For myself personally, I never focused on a title. It's easy for me to say now at the title, but I never focused on it. It was never the driver. My driver was my commitment to my company, to my coworkers, and I found so much value in that. I really didn't care who I reported to. I was going to show up and do the same thing that I did regardless. I don't know that there's anything that a single company can do. If you don't play the game, you're not going to get the talent. And so it's just this slippery slope. I don't know if we now convert over to, somebody's going to be the king of QA. I don't know where it's going to end because there's only so many jobs and titles to go around. It's becoming almost meaningless.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Greg, I agree. I think the other challenge, and I don't know if you've experienced this, is that as a leader, when you are bringing someone in and they're at a title, perhaps that might be too high or not quite suited for them, it requires a very different leadership model to make sure that that person is successful. Because I know for me, whoever I bring on my team, the goal is success. The goal is career progression. The goal is advancement. It's never to hinder or hold people back. And so I think when we bring people in that are slightly out of scope or misaligned with their title, it creates this leadership dilemma and what I like to refer to as perhaps there's more decision making or brainstorming that has to occur with peers or even with me, myself, or whoever that VP leader is or whatever the title is. But there's somebody else that's being pulled in and helping guide and make those decisions. I think also we have to get comfortable with risk, and maybe I don't want to use the word mistakes because we all make them, but there are going to be mistakes, and we have to be comfortable with owning those mistakes as leaders. So when we make those hiring decisions, we have to be really careful about what are the other implications, not only as myself, but to the other group and to the other team members, and how does it really going to impact everyone, the totality.
Darren, I don't know. I mean, you're in this space. Do you know? We're both U.S. based. Is it pervasive throughout the industry throughout the world? I mean, are European countries going through this same?
100%. I mean, I can't. My whole experience has been in the US. I can't speak for the UK, but like you two put perfectly, it is something that I've seen. Been having a lot of conversations with people who, they might only have 6-7 years experience, and as an example, that could just be as a senior QA specialist, and all of a sudden they're looking for a senior director title, and it's like, well, I'll be completely honest with you. I think a manager title would be better for you, so you can work up that experience of managing people before managing a whole organization. And it's kind of like, it's conversations of, well, if you don't give it to me, then I'll just interview with another company and they'll give it to me. And that's perfectly fine. Like, no problem, by all means. If that's what you want to do it. But it's one of those things where you need to sit down and be like, you need to trust me. If you rush into this, further down the line, you will find it difficult to progress. If you're a senior director after X amount of years, it can take you so long to get to that VP level. So yes, it is something I'm seeing across the US right now. I'm not sure if it's the same in the UK and Europe. If there is anyone in our attendee list who is in the UK or Europe, if you think it is happening there, do let us know. But yeah, I agree. I think it is something that needs to be addressed. But like you say, it's one of those sticky situations. You know, how do you say to someone, you're not at that level yet without offending them, because you want to be inclusive, you want to motivate them. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But are people being promoted too quickly? Potentially, yes. Brilliant. Well, no, look, that's a really interesting topic I wanted to touch on. Another one that we sort of mentioned, and this kind of raised a few eyebrows as well, but it was the topic of diversity, right? And we spoke about this briefly, but I do just want to sort of throw it out there and get your opinions on what sectors can learn from quality, okay? Because a lot of industries, STEM included, typically it's male dominated, right? If you look at quality, and I've done research on this with different tools, with Talent Insights, in Massachusetts and in the US, it's a lot more gender balanced than most other industries, which is a great thing. It's a good thing. I guess what can other sectors learn from this, and you know why do we think this is? Just again throwing that out to the whole panel. If Jared and Katie, if you don't take yourselves off mute straight away, Greg's going to jump right in there. So throwing it out there, go.
I was going to let Jared go.
Greg's just muted himself now, so
no, that's fine. I mean, I think maybe it was you, Jared, or Greg, that even said it at the beginning. The quality kind of movement has changed. We're no longer sort of the police, if you will. There's this whole sense of collaboration. There's this whole sense of partnership. It requires a lot of emotional intelligence, strong communication, sort of all of those leadership dimensions, at least as you're wanting to move through the ranks. It becomes very critical. And I think, you know, those are the people that are most successful in quality, or at least in my experience, that are able to really surround themselves, understand their stakeholder needs, bring those softer skills to the forefront while really understanding some of the science behind the scenes and really being able to facilitate difficult decisions that are anchored in highly analytical, highly data-centric problems.
Love that. Great answer.
Thank you.
Jared, Greg, what are your thoughts? Any opinions to throw out there?
I thought Jared had good thoughts on this when we discussed it last week. I liked his approach or his thoughts around this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, there's for me when I think about and I spend a lot of time thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry itself, and really thinking about how we can make jobs more accessible, right? So I think sure, there's all kinds of different diversity. There's male versus female. There's Black, African American. There's all kinds of diversity, right? I think from my perspective, right, like you know, the most interesting and impactful things that we can do to sort of diversify the workforce in all of our spaces is really to think about how we get into the communities and talk to people about the industry and what we do, you know, how they basically really science is for everyone and anybody can do it, right? And really thinking about how you partner with people to build diversity into your ecosystem, right? Like, I mean, you have to talk to the community organizations. You have to, I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, in my opinion, one of the most impactful ways to accelerate diversity is if you have somebody who looks like you or has the diversity quality that you have, and you're talking to them and telling them about your experience and what you do, right? If in sort of in the sphere, like, if you see somebody who looks like you that's doing what you don't think is possible, but they can do it, then oftentimes that leads you to do it, right? I mean, one of the fun stories that I've heard is like, there was a male faculty member who took this student under his wings, and it happened to be a woman, to try to teach her analytical chemistry, and really spent all this time with her, tutored her and all this stuff. He brought her to one of the companies he was involved with, and she met the staff there and really spent a good half hour talking to this woman who was an analytical chemist, and then she went off and graduated and did her thing, and she came back and he talked to her, and he said, "Oh, what was the most, of all the things I did to help you be successful, or try to help you be successful, what had the most impact?" She said, "Oh, well, remember when I met that woman at the company? That's what drove me down this path. It had nothing to do with the mentoring he provided, right? It was all about seeing somebody who looks like you and realizing that you can do it too." So really thinking about diversity more broadly and how we can impact it. The other thing that really excites me about diversity, right, and bringing new people into the fold is, we're all brought up differently. We all have different life experiences, and the more diversity we have in the way that people think about diversity also leads to diversity of thought, which really can drive innovation and collaboration and all kinds of new things that would be really cool to think about. I often think to myself, oh, I wonder how many people who didn't have the opportunities that I've had could have done similar things and maybe found the cure to cancer that we'll never know, because I just didn't have that access, right? So.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, I have no answer that can top either one of those. I don't disagree that if you go to the base of the question, which was, the ratio of women compared to, and quality compared to the ratio of women in the general workforce, quality does seem to be more. Actually, after we talked last week, I went and counted. I'm at about 70% in my department, which is not what the rest of Rubius looks like. But I don't think I set out to do that on purpose. I don't know. I've tried to do some soul searching, not being a DEI aficionado and being enmeshed. I don't think I hired anybody for a particular trait other than the skills that they brought to the table. So I have stewed on this since last week, and I do think, because quality is really about life experiences, as we've talked about, it really you bring this educational background is only so much, and then there's these life experiences, and I think that women have to persevere, and that is a trait that lends itself well to a career in quality. You cannot have thin skin. You have to just keep picking yourself up and keep moving. And so I don't know. I landed on that as my answer to this question.
Brilliant. No, that's great. Thank you for your insight on those and all the questions previously. So, listen, there is one final question that we're going to do before we wrap up. But before that, I do want to go back. I promised our attendees we would try answer a few questions. So we're just probably only going to get through maybe 1, 2, or 3. But let me just pick one at random here from right. We've got Judy. So Judy asked us earlier. This is when we were talking about the quality mindset, okay? The mindset, it can be taught. However, that said, Judy does think that there are some personal traits that preclude you from a successful career in quality. I'm going to go around. We're going to keep it short, keep it sweet. 3 words, right? 3 traits that can set you up for a career in quality. Jared, you're on my left. I'm going to go with you first. You look surprised.
No, I'm always surprised. Good, yeah, I don't know. Attention to detail, collaborative. This is a trait that I think everybody should have, but perhaps ethical.
Brilliant. Greg, you're next in my circle.
I've got 2. Agility. I think agility of thought. You have to be able to maneuver. Sorry, I'm going more than 3 words. Nobody's surprised. And resolve. I really go to, you have to have a resolve. You have to do what you think is right, no matter what pressures you are getting. I didn't come up with a 3rd because you didn't give me enough time.
Well, I can only add two because I agree with both Jared and Greg, but I also had open-mindedness. So just being willing to learn and grow, but also being a good listener and really trying to understand where other people are coming from.
Brilliant. Good stuff. A question that just came in there from Elena. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Elena. Elena's asking, I guess this is to the whole panel, right? What was your most valuable job experience career-wise? Was there any position in particular that really supported your career growth and helped you to expand your expertise in the field? Greg is unmuted. Go, Greg.
I've had so many amazing work experiences. I really have. Choosing one to say my most valuable, I guess I would say, successful pre-approval inspection after weeks of FDA digging in, and just the amount I learned going through that the first time was unfathomable. It's so much. And I would say that, it's not a position, but my time at Dendron, and I started as a QC manager. When I left, I was the director of corporate QA over the course of 10 years. That was cell therapy. It was a new and budding part of the industry. And I still think that, what I learned there has set me up for a career in cell and gene therapy. And it's still hard to come by. I appreciate every day what I learned at the University of Dendron.
Brilliant. Good stuff. All right, well, look, what we'll do, we'll move on to the final question because I'm just conscious of time. You will see in a few moments a second poll will pop up on your screen. Just give that a few moments to come up. Again, really important, just put in your own opinions there. This will be used to collect data and go into our white paper. The question is, what is the most important responsibility for a quality professional? While you're voting on that, I've got three final questions. I've got one for each of our panelists, right? Again, I'm going to go in my little circle, which means, Jared, I'm going to start with you. My question to you, what are your hopes for the future of this industry?
It's a really good question. I mean, one of the things that, so I hope the quality mindset prevails. And why I say that is one of the spaces I spend a lot of my time in is thinking about personalized medicine. And there are some things and some discussions that are ongoing that go against the quality mindset that make me nervous. So I hope that prevails and that quality is always at the forefront of the drugs that we develop.
Brilliant. Good man. Greg, why do you do what you do?
Because I'm a glutton for punishment. I take it very seriously. I do what I do to not only impact the patients that we're serving today, but to hopefully transform medicine. That's why I work in cell and gene therapy. That's why I work in an area that where the guidances aren't being written yet. We're writing them as we go. We are paving the way. And I really see it as a way to transform how diseases are treated in the future. Might not be in my lifetime, but I'm hoping.
Love that. Brilliant. Katie, what do you love about the work that you do?
So I love the people that I work with. I tend to be surrounded by really talented, smart, motivated people. And I think they challenge me in ways to learn and grow. They make me look at myself and really evaluate, what am I doing well? What can I do better? I really enjoy kind of the people aspect of what I do. I think on a non kind of people or aspect of it, I just really love drug discovery. I really love seeing a molecule in the early days and then see that all the way through to commercialization. Those are the jobs that I really like the most, the R&D transformations.
Brilliant. Jared, Greg, and Katie, Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our panel discussion. To everyone that attended, I want to thank you so much for spending your morning, your evening, your lunchtime with us. We do have a networking session. I hope you can stick around for that. The link is in the chat box right now. So before you clock off, make sure you click that link. That'll take you into the networking session. Thank you for participating. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. That's going to be next week. Our next BioTalent Social is on breaking the bias. It's to do with International Women's Day, and details of that will follow as well after this event. Like I say, for those that want to continue the discussion further, do join our networking rooms. It's just a very great opportunity to meet other people who attended, to meet our panelists as well. I hope they can all make it. And yeah, that's it for me. A massive, massive final thank you to Jared O'Clair, Greg Whitehead, and Katie Terry for making up our amazing panel tonight. And we'll see you all at the next webinar. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.